Hello everyone, thanks so much for clicking on this video. My name's Kaylee, aka the Craft Raven. First off, I do want to mention, just don't pay attention to the background. I'm still in the process of unpacking things, so it's a bit crazy over there. I'm working on getting my craft room set up, so I'll be able to film in there more. So previously I asked what my next projects would be, and we came up with the Dodo Airlines Pilot Jacket from ACNH, Animal Crossing New Horizons, if you don't know. You can check out the video I made while struggling to decide what to make for this video in the description down below. Long story short, I'm making that as a real life item. I really hope you enjoy the sewing process. For this jacket, I used a pre-made pattern. Anytime I use a pattern, I trace it onto paper so I can reuse it for other sizes. To do this, I use a roll of translucent paper and tape it down with painter's tape. I have to label everything because I will forget what the pattern and size is. There are several pieces to this pattern, so I have to do this for all of them. Then I neatly fold them again so I can store it in the same pouch it came in. If you've ever used these kinds of patterns, you know how tedious this is. I didn't like the original pockets on the pattern, so I decided to adjust them to be more symmetrical like the Animal Crossing jacket has. I just had to make sure that all the points lined up correctly so it would fit properly after sewing. Then comes cutting out all the pieces of the pattern I just traced. I put all the pieces down onto the fabric I'm using. I used a green denim fabric so it would have some good durability for it to be actually worn. You'll see me go through a few different outfits because this whole process took me months to complete. The project as a whole didn't really take that long, but I had to do it between work and other life responsibilities. I used brown cotton for the lining and had to cut out most of the pieces again for this fabric. Finally, I used a black knitted cotton for the cuffs, waist, and collar. Onto the actual sewing process. I started with the pockets. These pockets have plackets to reinforce the opening, and there are 2 for each pocket. This is the pocket flap, which has 2 pieces sewn together. Because a jacket is symmetrical, I have to repeat a lot of steps for each side. And here's both flaps. sewed the plackets and the flaps onto each side of the front jacket, then trimmed the seams. Next, I sewed on the actual pocket and the pocket lining on the front. Cut a hole for the opening of the pocket so I could turn them to the back. I reinforce the openings with an edge stitch. This is what the front looks like now with the flap. Now I just sew the pocket to the pocket lining. Lastly, I sew down the seam allowance. Once the pocket is sewn down and ironed, I just need to add the hardware. These flaps need a snap to close, which has 4 parts. I measured where they go and punched a hole through both sides. Then just set the snaps in place. The back, there are a couple darts to sew, which are essentially folds to sew down to help contour to the body curves. Then I sewed the 2 front sides to the back. For the arm pocket, I cut out a 9 by 6.5 inch rectangle on the fold from the lining fabric. I just eyeballed the placement, but I measured the opening for the zipper. I really just hoped for the best for the placement. I sewed the lining to the arm and cut an opening for the zipper. Once it was ironed, I pinned and sewed the zipper in place. I then sewed the pocket closed. With the pocket done, I sewed the arm pieces together. What makes the pilot jacket unique are the various Dodo airline patches. I had an amazing person gift these to me for my throne. All the patches came from a seller on Etsy, which I have listed in the description. I did forget to show the Dodo patch, which I have from the same seller. The patches on the back of the jacket take up the entire space. However, these were smaller than I thought. I started with the right arm patch, which I also just eyeballed for the placement. So I pinned it in place and hoped for the best. Then I finished up that arm by sewing it together. finish up the sleeves, I added cuffs. I sewed them into a tube, folded them, and sewed them to the arms. Next was the dodo patch on the front right. I was a bit disappointed with the colors not matching up exactly to the in-game version, but it's what I could find. I'm hoping to get an embroidery machine in the future to make my own patches. With these two patches, I was a bit more meticulous when placing them. I then sewed the Dodo airline patch on the left front. I wanted to be optimistic about the back patches, so I placed them on the back, but they were just not the right size. Instead, I used my Cricut to cut out some heat transfer vinyl. Because this graphic was a bit specific, I couldn't find any pre-made designs online. This meant I had to custom make the design for the Dodo Airlines globe and the wings. I will be posting another video for how I made that design later on. Now I'm just peeling off the excess vinyl to leave just the design. This is always such a satisfying process to me. Now that the design is cut and weeded, I need to prep the fabric for the transfer. I just iron it and run a lint roller over it. I cut this design out in layers because it has so many colors, and I didn't want to stack them all together, so it was kind of tricky getting them all lined up. I shortly ironed each layer just enough for them to hold onto the fabric while I got all the layers down. And I was a dodo head when I cut this out. I didn't leave the design lined up, so I had to line them up correctly by hand. For the stars, I wanted them to be lined up as best as possible, so I measured the distance for each one. Then I cut and weeded the wings. They are symmetrical, so I was able to just make one wing and cut out two mirrored pieces. ironed those in just one go because I didn't want to have to worry about layers. I do like how the final design came out though, especially because it was my first time using heat transfer vinyl. Now that all of the DAL embellishments are added, I can continue sewing. I'm just adding the arms to the torso and being careful not to catch any unwanted fabric. Waistband had some interfacing in the front, which is like a padding, so I'm just now getting to the cutting of that. I'm adding the front panels to the knitted fabric of the waistband. Then I pin down the waistband and sew it to the rest of the jacket. I also decided to reinforce the seam by finishing the edges on the serger. Before I added the main zipper, I need to sew together the zipper flap. This has padded interfacing and stitching down the length of it. It's made with 2 pieces of fabric sewn together. Now it's time to get the zipper on. I use my machine zipper foot to get a close stitch to the zipper teeth. I sewed down one side first, then pinned and sewed the other side to make sure it's lined up properly. Then I just sew the flap in place. This is the last step before the lining, which is just sewing the collar in place. With the lining, it's pretty much repeating the previous steps of sewing together the arms and torso. On this one, I decided to reinforce the arm stitches of the lining on the serger. Now I just need to sew the lining to the jacket. I start at the collar, then the waistband. Sewing the lining to the front sides was probably the most tedious because I did it by hand instead of using the machine. This process took a few hours for both sides, but the end result came out really nice. The sleeves were meant to be sewn by hand as well, but after a few pokes from the needle, I was over that, and I used the machine instead. That probably shaved off a few hours of work, and it still looks good. And that was the final step. The jacket is done. Thanks so much for making it this far with me. I know it's kind of a longer video, but I wanted to show the entire sewing process from start to finish. Don't get me wrong, I did cut out quite a few bits, but it didn't need to be a 3-hour long video. I want to make more of these videos in the future, so if you liked it, please hit the like button and subscribe. That way you can get notified when I make more in the future. If you have any ideas of what I should make in future videos, just let me know down in the comments. Without further ado, what am I doing? Here's the finished